What's wrong with Iga Swiatek? She lost to Coco Gauff in the semifinals of the 2025 Madrid Open, 6-1, 6-1. And what's so strange about this result is that I remember vividly how much of a discrepancy in clay court level there was last year when Iga beat Coco in the semifinals of the French and in the semifinals of Rome. I thought that Coco had very little chances to win those matches, and this is a different Iga, and she was lucky to win that second game in the second set because Coco was so dominant. She was up 6-1, 5-0. So let me give you my opinion on what I think is going on with Iga. So I think the downward trend started shortly after her collecting her fourth French Open title. She didn't play well at Wimbledon, lost to Proton, but I don't think that was upsetting for Iga. I think grass courts is a surface that she still has to master. But shortly after the Wimbledon Championships, Iga played the Olympics on her favorite surface, on clay, at Roland Garros. And I was sure that she was going to take the title. And she had a devastating loss in the semifinals to Zheng. And I think that loss stuck in her mind for a long time. And it created a cascade of negative events. Iga continued to lose matches. And if you look back at her results, the last time that Iga was in a final was at the French Open in 2024. So her poor performances in some matches last year and this year have to do with a lack of confidence. That match against Zheng at Roland Garros possibly put some doubts in her mind, and she performed very poorly in some big matches after that. But it goes way deeper than that, because Iga also completely changed the tactics on the court. As I discussed in some of my previous videos, she doesn't play like the clay court queen that she is. She has very heavy ground strokes. She is one of the best athletes that I've ever seen on the WTA Tour. She plays incredible defense, but also offense, and she plays high percentage tennis. I have seen the exact opposite in some of her losses. For example, the Ostapenko loss in Stuttgart, but also the Coco Gauff loss in Madrid. Iga is spraying balls and going for too much, committing too many errors. And a lot of people are blaming the coaching, but I heard the coaching box tell Iga to build the points. So a lot of this stuff is easier said than done. The problems that Iga is having right now go very deep. It's very likely that Iga doesn't trust herself to stay in these rallies, and therefore she pulls the trigger a little bit too fast. She's playing very close to the baseline as well, something that's quite unnecessary on clay. So in other words, she's taken way too many risks. Now, the positive news is that despite her playing poorly throughout this tournament in Madrid, she still made the semifinals. So I think she can take a lot of positives out of this. And now, as we go to Rome and the French Open, the conditions are going to suit Iga much better. Now, on top of Iga losing a lot of matches, other things have been happening too. She has received some criticism on social media, and also the media in Poland is very brutal on her. That's what I've been told, and Iga has had a hard time with that. She wrote a 4-page note on Instagram. I talked about that in a previous video of mine. And my condolences go out to Iga because her grandfather passed away prior to the Madrid tournament. So times have been very tough for Iga. See, I love the clay court season, and I love clay court specialists. And what I love most about clay court specialists is the fact that they are grinders. And what do all great clay court grinders have in common? They're unbelievable movers. And it is my belief that Iga is one of the best movers that we've ever seen on the WTA. But if you watch the match against Coco Gauff, Iga's movement was very poor.
How does it feel for you? Is it a heaviness in your legs? Is it more you're thinking about something else? Like, how does it manifest?
Honestly, yeah, for sure you feel heavy, and you're like forcing everything instead of, you know, it going by kind of intuition and by itself, you know, because I know how I can move, and usually, you know, I didn't have to think about it much. But for last weeks, it hasn't been that easy. Like, I've been like forcing myself to go lower, to be more precise with my feet, because it's not going by itself. So hopefully, like, one day it's gonna click. But you know, I'm not expecting anything. I'm just gonna try to work on that.
I created a course 3 years ago titled The Intuitive Tennis Footwork, and in this course, I teach players how to develop intuitive footwork, because the worst thing that you can do is think of your feet when you're playing tennis. It's going to make your movements very mechanical. They're not going to be continuous, and it's going to lead you to play very poorly. And that's exactly what was happening to Iga in the match against Coco Gauff on so many occasions. Let me give you one example. If you take a look at this forehand right here, Iga was moving her feet. She has fantastic intensity, and that ball bounced inside the service line. Iga, however, didn't set up to that ball. She was probably thinking about her feet and not allowing the footwork to be intuitive. Normally, she could have moved up to that ball a little bit because that ball, again, landed inside the service line, or she could have executed a closed stance for him. But Iga was moving her feet. She was waiting for that ball, and by the time she hit it, she was so far away from it. And when she tried to correct the poor positioning, she lost balance and made a frustrating forehand mistake. I've seen this type of footwork mistake not only on her forehand, but also on her backhand. Now, based on the post-match interview, Iga knows that this is a big problem, and she has to let that footwork come intuitively to her, like she has done in the past. For you guys watching, if you're thinking too much about your footwork on the tennis court, if you're trying to learn steps and you're thinking which foot goes first, which foot goes second, how you're going to make a crossover step, you have to learn to move intuitively on the tennis court. That is the only way. And in that course that I referred to, I teach players how to learn intuitive tennis footwork. So there are things that you can do in order for you to move intuitively. One example would be that scenario that I described with Iga. Let's say that you get a ball that's not penetrating very much. You don't have to think about your feet in that circumstance. You just have to recognize the ball, and the feet will move on their own. So you're gonna think to move up to that ball in relation to the ball, and you're not gonna worry about your feet. You already know how to run. You already know how to move. You're gonna watch that ball like a hawk. You're gonna track it, and you're gonna set yourself up perfectly. If you're thinking open stance or closed stance, this is a recipe for disaster on the tennis court. In that particular scenario, if that ball has a lot of penetration, you can wait for it, and naturally when you wait, you're going to be semi-open on the forehand. And if the ball doesn't have a lot of penetration, you're going to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to have to step up to that ball, and naturally it's going to be executed in a closed stance situation. What's so interesting about this matchup between Gauff and Swiatek is that both players get criticized on social media, and I get very annoyed because they don't deserve any criticism. As an Iga fan, I'm so thankful that I was able to witness all her victories, and I understand that a tennis career has ups and downs, and even if Iga doesn't come out of this down phase, which I think that she will, by the way, I think she's still going to be the favorite at the French. Those conditions suit her really well, but the criticism on the internet is insane. Coco Gauff had to deal with this a lot in the past, and if you watch Coco play today, yes, it was a poor performance from Iga, but Coco was playing amazing. Her serve is so incredibly fast, one of the best servers on the tour. Her forehand, when she's not tight on it, is so incredibly heavy and dangerous, and Coco has one of the best two-handed backhands on the entire WTA tour, and she also happens to be an incredible athlete. So Coco Gauff gets so much unfair criticism on the internet, undeservingly so. I do think that she's going to have her chances against Sabalenka, but one thing that I've been saying about Sabalenka, she doesn't get flustered when she loses important matches. She lost that super important title in Stuttgart. She wanted that car really bad, and I think she's going to want revenge. I don't think that Sabalenka is going to lose 2 finals in a row. So Coco Gauff is going to have her chances, but I do think that Sabalenka will come out victorious. Now, the last time they played, Coco did beat Sabalenka, so this is going to be a super interesting match to watch. Guys, if you're interested in buying the Intuitive Tennis Footwork course, I can give you a deal. All you got to do is DM me Footwork on Instagram. So go to Instagram, follow @Intuitive Tennis, send me a DM, type in Footwork, and I'm going to give you a good deal on the course.